I'm only going to keep your attention for about 4 or 5 seconds if you have to look at me without talking about the commentary. But thanks for sticking around with us here at the Catholic Citizen as we cover this week's news from a Catholic perspective and help form our conscience and our souls that we're prepared for that final moment where we stand before the Almighty, the one who created us, the one who redeemed us, the one who gives us life. And we give an account for our life. And praise be Jesus Christ for the wonderful death that he died for us so that to set us free and enable us to stand before the Father in that most terrifying moment. Now, speaking of terrifying moments, that won't happen for 1,500 people who've been pardoned by President Joe Biden just today. So kind of interesting. Hunter Biden was, of course, pardoned last week, a very specific date starting in 2014. And Joe, if you're listening to the show, President Biden, if you could pardon me from May 22nd, 2006. No, I'm just kidding. With that being said,
I'm not sure he's going to do that for you, Pete.
Well, yeah, I'm not. I've been the biggest fan of President Biden, so I wouldn't be surprised about this. But today is probably the biggest single day act of clemency in modern history. 1,500 people pardoned, and the Biden administration said that there's more coming. So I have to digest. I haven't read much about who's been pardoned, other than CNN having some sappy stories about some people who, deserve to be pardoned and so on and so forth. So we'll see. But I seriously doubt that Joe Biden knows all 1,500 of these people. And that's where, like, the presidential pardon, it's fine for me, but I feel like there should be some level of like engagement that the president has had with these people. Rather, it's clearly a huge swath of list of people that had just been brought to the president to say, yeah, you should pardon all these people. And he has no idea about any of them. Certainly knows his son, but not these 1,500 have been pardoned today. All right. First story that I wanted to cover, though, today is the drones off the eastern seaboard. So it's freaking people out. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of drones flying around and sightings off in New Jersey, and it's scaring people. They're larger than normal drones, if you will. They're not just, and they seem pretty sophisticated in the way that they're moving and everything of that nature. And New Jersey Representative Jeff Van Drew just comes out yesterday and says that very qualified and reliable sources that he says are at the highest levels here believe the mystery drones populating the Garden State skies are originating from an Iranian ship off our eastern seaboard, what he called the Iranian mothership that's parked off the East Coast. Now, Iran has just recently purchased a tremendous amount of drones from China. China has been developing drones for their own warfare that they're planning, whether with Taiwan or other countries. But the interesting thing about this story for me is that the Pentagon comes out. So after Van Drew talks to these high-ranking officials, the Pentagon comes out and he says there's no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States. Now, this is the same group that was telling us that balloon that was flying over Wyoming, Montana, and then most of the United States, taking pictures. Don't worry, nothing to see here. And oh, by the way, that it ends up being a Chinese spy balloon. Why we didn't just shoot that out of the sky, and why we don't shoot these drones out of the sky if we have any inkling that it could come from a foreign adversary is beyond me. But it's just a struggle that I have in general with the intelligence agencies. It's like we hear what they want us to hear, and then we don't hear what they don't want us to hear. So we knew more about the killer of the CEO of the healthcare, United Healthcare, in 5 minutes. We knew more about him than we still know about the individual who shot at President Trump this past summer. So it's just disturbing to me that so much of the information is still behind kind of locked doors. All right.
My opinion on that is the legacy media is dying. There's been like this relationship, this really bizarre and unhealthy relationship between the government and news media. And this is why platforms like X are super important, because we become the news media. Like, we are the way in which what we're doing here right now, like where we have control of the message that we want to give instead of being bought out by the government. And it's not like all YouTube or X creators are immune to being bought out, similarly to the legacy news media, but we're kind of starting from scratch in a sense, building from the ground up, and there's a lot more opportunity for integrity of message. That's my perspective. I just really appreciate what I think was like this huge branch in the human timeline that was triggered by Elon Musk buying Twitter. And I also think that things have pendulum swung so far to the extremes in the recent decade, in the last 5 years, and I just think that sometimes we have to hit rock bottom before we can realize, oh, we need to build in a new direction. Like someone in their personal life hitting rock bottom in a similar way. What are your thoughts on that?
We'll go back just a few months and imagine that Elon Musk, or I don't know, it's probably been over a year now, but imagine Elon Musk did not purchase Twitter and did not make it X. I mean, the amount of censorship we saw in the last presidential election and the amount that X has enabled people just to share information publicly. And yes, sometimes some information might be proven untrue, but at least there's an opportunity to discuss these issues. And the legacy media literally taking kind of talking points from the administration, even in this most recent election, whether it was, Kamala Harris's campaign of joy, which Jill Biden was having fun with the other day at the White House. I think there's some cold tensions there. But with all that being said, it's nice that we have this opportunity to do platforms like the Catholic Citizen and everything else that's on X that enables people just to have a show which is not, super scripted by the government, which is what they have in other countries. So, all right, second, this is just so incredibly disheartening. And so we remember what this does. Mifepristone works, the abortion pill, by starving the developing baby to death. That's the way that it works. It cuts off nutrients from the baby's body in the womb. And then that's followed up by another pill that basically it's a misuse of misoprostol. It's an anti-ulcer drug, but it's used to cause contractions and expel the dead baby from the mother's body. So the combination of these pills is what's given to women all across the country. Well, now Sam's Club, you can go in to get your groceries, and then you can also go and get the abortion pill. Sam's Club announcing that they're going to allow the abortion pill to be sold at their pharmacy. So Sam's Club, it's a division of Walmart. So, this is just another example of how our culture promotes and allows for abortion. Our companies that are paying for abortion tourism. It's just sickening. And can you imagine a culture on the other end if companies would pay like baby bonuses when you have a baby, what that would do to create a culture of life in a business versus paying for abortion travel or allowing the abortion drug to be accessible.
Wait, just to clarify, are you proposing that a company literally pay out a bonus to an employee if they or their spouse gets pregnant?
Yes, I think that's a wonderful idea.
What would be the basis for that? Like, how would you pitch that?
How would I pitch that?
Yeah.
We as a company support and love families. We love life, and we want you to live the abundant life if you're working here with us. And so we want to support you, and we recognize the cost of taking care of a child. And so we want to support you. And so we're going to give you a baby bonus. That's how you sell it. You budget for every year. And if you're already budgeting $2,000 to pay for abortion travel, you can budget $2,000 to give a baby bonus for your company.
Did you come up with this?
What's that?
Did you come up with this?
I'm sure I read it somewhere, but sure, I'll take credit right now.
All right, you heard it first here, folks.
All right. Mind you, just one last note about this. The FDA has linked mifepristone to at least 28 women's deaths and 4,000 serious complications. This was all before President Barack Obama then ordered the FDA to stop requiring that non-fatal complications from mifepristone be reported. So 28 women died, and then the Obama administration says, hey, let's not look at any serious complications with this. That's what you get when you get a pro-choice administration. Third, speaking of administrations, though, that when you get a pro-life administration, you tend to get some better appointments. So obviously, we've talked about the disappointment with Robert Kennedy being appointed to Health and Human Services Director. Robert's been shown to be pro-choice throughout his entire kind of public career. He's a Catholic, by the way. He should be denied communion. We are an equal opportunity denier of communion, whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you support abortion. But with that being said, there are some good picks. So I want to review those real quick with you just so you're informed about them. Marty McCary is Trump's pick to lead the FDA. This plays a critical role in access to medication, abortion, and contraception. So abortion groups that are supporters of abortion have just been very frustrated by this pick, saying that he shares misinformation about abortion and stuff like that. So when the abortion rights groups get upset, we get happy. So praise God for Marty. Go get him. Russell Vought. He's the staunch anti-abortion conservative. You may have remember his name from Project 2025. He's the kind of the author behind that. He's been appointed or nominated for the Director of Office Management and Budget. Super huge here because the Office of Management and Budget, obviously budget requires money. And so, where's our money going to go? And so not funding abortion because Russell Vought has been nominated for that office. Good news. Number 3, Florida's Attorney General Pam Bondi. She has defended pro-life laws throughout her career, and she has, including just like the 24-hour waiting period, which has just been attacked here in Ohio. She's Trump's choice for Attorney General. So great choice there as well. 2 more. David Weldon. He is pro-life. Former Florida congressman, he's been chosen to lead the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which collects and monitors abortion data across the country. Very important as well, so that we can understand and appreciate the story and the narrative behind what's going on with the life issue across the country. And then former Republican Congressman Doug Collins is Trump's choice to lead the Department of Veteran Affairs. And this is important. You want to think Veteran Affairs has anything to do with abortion, but there is a large political battle right now over abortion access and funding for troops who want to get abortions overseas and here in the United States. And Collins has consistently voted to restrict funding access and funding mechanisms that would fund abortion, and celebrating the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So some really great picks. And this is the gamble we took as a pro-life community, voting for President Trump, who kind of ran on the more pro-choice side, but he's appointing a lot of pro-life people across the administration. And that is a really, really good thing. All right. Mentioned just a second ago, the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, who was murdered and shot. So 4th story here, there in New York City. Awful thing. What's been awful for me too, though, following this cold-blooded murder, is the response that we've received kind of online. So people on eBay have been selling shirts, mugs, and stickers bearing the words "Deny, Defend, Depose." Deny, depose. Those were scrawled on the shell casings of the shooting itself. That often was the language that some of these health care insurance agencies would use when there was an appeal against, whether or not they would cover some healthcare procedure, whatever it might be. Look, we can acknowledge that our healthcare industry is really bad and there's a lot of problems with health insurance. There is no doubt about that. But when you have Senator Elizabeth Warren said you can only push people so far, almost insinuating that, violence happens, it's just going to happen. She reiterated that violence is not the answer, but it's kind of sickening that anybody in any way, shape, or form can justify the killing and murdering of another man. And look, this goes back to, when there's people dancing in the streets with the death of Osama bin Laden. It can be a good thing that we took out a terrorist to protect our people in the United States, but I don't think we should ever celebrate the death of someone, the shooting of someone. No matter how heinous they are, we might breathe a sigh of relief that evil person, is not around. But Brian Thompson was a CEO of a company. He had a family, and there's no way, shape, or form that we should be celebrating death, period.
I think that what we see in this story, though, is like there is this tipping point in society. You think of watching movies like V for Vendetta or any of these films or stories where, the people at the ground level, us, but, hopefully the majority of us watching this program right now are more level-headed. But you do reach this tipping point where people have had enough. And I'm not at all saying that what he did is right at all. But I do think that we need to be conscious that the more we push someone, or a mass amount of people, like now there are in New York City those wanted photos being put up all over of more healthcare CEOs, and I think that people are getting exploited in the current approach to the health system in the United States, and this represents to me that tipping point where people are just getting fed up, and what I'm concerned about too is people copycatting this guy and approaching things in this more aggressive way, in this more violent way, to try to resolve this systemic problem. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just think it's scary at the end of the day to justify violence. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of different issues that we could look to, and we could just say people are just fed up. I mean, we've had 10 million immigrants cross the border illegally. I can see people just being like, I'm fed up. I'm going to take this into my own hands, and maybe I'm going to go down and guard the border. And anybody coming towards the border, I'm going to shoot at him. Like, how do we feel about that? We would certainly not encourage that. And here's my challenge, and this is the last story that I'm covering today, because this challenges me when it comes to how do we deal with that anger, and oftentimes justified anger towards individuals that are doing things that are wrong, that are doing things that are actually hurting people. And the example of Christ challenges us. He didn't run away from violence. He said, turn the other cheek. He didn't run away from violence, but he absorbed it on the cross, right? And so I think that's our call as Christians when it comes to these situations. So let me give you one more example from history, though, of someone who shows just how powerful the example of Christ can lead someone, and just how powerful God's mercy is. I think it was St. Teresa of Lisieux who said, God coming as a little baby, as he did, that type of God can only be mercy and love. So let me tell you the story just real quick here, of a woman. She was a midwife, actually. And let me see, I can't, her name is really hard to pronounce, but it's Stanisława Lasinka. So if you're Polish, I apologize. I've got some Polish in me, but that's a really tough name. We'll just call her Stani. So she's a Polish midwife. She delivered 3,000 babies in Auschwitz. This maternity ward that was created. So when a lot of pregnant mothers just came to Auschwitz, the death camp there by the Nazis, they were just taken directly to the gas chambers. But there were women that got pregnant while at Auschwitz. There was women who didn't know they were pregnant when they got to Auschwitz. And so they were allowed to stay in this maternity ward, but barely any water there. Terribly awful conditions. They said that there was rats that were larger than some of these newborns that were there in this area. Infectious diseases, just awful conditions. But this woman volunteered because she was a midwife to care for these women. A lot of these women who had babies, there was another nurse that was there that was ordered by the Nazis just to drown the babies. So many of these babies were born and then just immediately killed. Some really sick stuff. They tried to force Stani to say they wanted this baby killed, this baby, whatever. And Stani said, I'm not going to do it. You can shoot me dead, but I'm not going to do it. They didn't kill her for whatever reason. But she ends up delivering 3,000 babies. Some of those babies were taken and they were adopted out. They were Germanized, taken out to different German couples if they met the criteria, the looks maybe of what the Nazi regime was looking for. There was 30 of these babies that survived through the liberation of Auschwitz. And Stani got a chance to actually meet some of these babies later on in life. She said it was the happiest day of her life. So an incredible story of a woman. She died in 1974 of intestinal cancer. So she survived throughout, and her cause is now up for canonization by the Catholic Church there in Poland. But here's the thrust of this story. She chose life in the midst of great darkness. There wasn't even any guarantee that these babies were going to survive. So, why are you even caring for the mom? Why are you even caring for the baby? What's the point? Well, she chooses life even in the midst of this great darkness, this great evil, this great sickness, all around her. Now, later on, she's being interviewed, And she seldom spoke of her experiences because it was just so awful. But she also made the point that she didn't speak about her experiences because she did not want people to hate the Germans. It's a Polish woman in the midst of Auschwitz, seeing death and destruction and all the evil acts of the Germans. And she says this, quote, don't judge, because you don't know what made them behave like this, end quote, she said. Find that example inspiring. We certainly judge the actions of people. We certainly condemn the evil actions of people. We certainly call abortion murder. We certainly say when it's wrong, to kill people in violence, like we saw with the CEO healthcare worker. But let us really challenge ourselves this Christmas season. Just remember, God is mercy. God is love. And he looks beyond what we can see on the physical appearance, beyond what we can read in the headlines every day. And he sees every one of us, whether it's President Joe Biden, whether it's myself, whether it's you watching the show. He sees your heart. He knows that you're wicked, that you're fallen, that you're a sinner. He knows everything that you've ever done, but he loves you. He cares for you, and he wants the best for you. So join us next week on Catholic Citizen. And we're going to have one more story for you, but that is going to be
two.
For maybe two. There's going to be two more stories.
Yeah. I got something I wanted to bring up.
You want to bring up two? Okay. Are we doing this in the paid show or just for the free show?
We'll do my story here.
Your story here. Okay. All right. So Nick's going to do a story real quick, and then my story, one more story for you. It's going to be about sex. So you're going to want to pay,
so is mine. Wait, are we talking about the same story?
It's about Lily Phillips.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up.
Yeah. Okay. So, this takes money to run the show. So we need your help. Even if it's just like $1 a month, $5 a month, that could really benefit us. So please consider donating. Nick, where can they go to donate to, make sure the show goes on?
Just visit thecatholicCitizen.com and you can become a patron there. And so one-time donations make a huge difference. But the biggest impact you can make is a recurring donation. And we left it open so that anybody can kind of determine on their own what they want to give. And so like Peter said, if you can do $5 a month, amazing. If you can do $100 a month, amazing. And I want to show here what this looks like. So this is the page. If you go to thecatholicCitizen.com and you can select a one-time gift, or you can select a monthly recurring gift. And if you become a monthly recurring gift, that constitutes becoming an actual patron, an ongoing patron member. And so basically, any gift is appreciated. It takes a lot of work to put on this show, and there are a lot of things we want to do to keep spicing things up here. But basically, the more support we can get, the more amazing things we can do. And that is that. And so, like, Peter, if you want to kind of share what you're going to do, what we are going to do here just for paid members of the patron community, go ahead.
Yeah, so just $1 a month will get you into a special, unique after show where we'll cover one more unique story. It'll most likely be the most juiciest story there is, but we encourage you just to donate $1 a month. You get to hear that story. There's also going to be more opportunity kind of in that after show for some more neat interaction with me, even outside the show. So please consider becoming a patron, donating one time or donating monthly. We would tremendously appreciate your gifts. And more on that to come. But we're going to talk about sex in the after show.
And a lot of it.
And well, just a little bit of it.
So, no, I mean, it was a lot.
Well, yeah, that's true. Lily Phillips coming up here in just a little bit. But until then, you guys have a great Advent season. We'll see you next week on The Catholic Citizen.